Now, as it's said in occultism, as above, so below. And the reason why that was mentioned and is mentioned so much is because it's also the way that sorcerers or dark magicians figure out how the higher things work. Okay. So it's a direct reference to, hey, if we can understand any part of this, then we can see it from the entire spectrum. So now let's go to Hollywood very briefly, because we have to bring it into something in modern times that everybody has got to understand. Now, we know that Hollywood is run by occultists. If you don't know that by now, you probably should give up this life and just go chill out, go relax on a Tempur-Pedic bed, wait till you kick off and then try to start it up again and then go at it again, because you need to know where this is coming from, is what I'm saying. So media is the number one occultist. The TV is the Black Mirror, okay? It's the scrying box. So at this stage, then, let's now assume that those that are writing these scripts and working with this equipment and stuff in Hollywood are all adepts, the ones that especially behind the scenes. And when you accept that, then you may learn how magic works. We have to have some version of it working that we can draw parallels to now. We also know that Aleister Crowley, who is the OTO of the Golden Dawn, basically those who study the Dark Tantra, was very influential in starting Hollywood and writing a lot of the scripts to do the rituals that were necessary to bring about breaking guardian bounds, like basically taking entire areas and removing the guardians from those areas so those areas can be used continuously to do things that would normally not be done in the order. So what I'm referring to here is that Hollywood became a place where dark magic could be practiced to affect the masses. But what had to be created was like a microcosmic version of how the world works. Okay? And it has to be so on point, so exact. It has to be able to even affect the world of the person it's being projected to. So to be very clear, each person is a world. So to create another world and to place it inside of somebody else, in effect, allows another world to start to begin inside of them. This is what Hollywood specializes in. So now I first want to take you to the equipment, because this is occult equipment that is first used. Now, the projector. Okay, now we've learned what projecting is. But the projector in itself, if we understand its original origin, has something in it called the film. Okay, and the film is made from cellophane. Okay, or celluloids. In fact, film used to just be called celluloids. Pass me the celluloids, not pass me the film. And it's because in science, which is their first religion, Zionists, what was discovered is the film that's actually around stars, like what is the next substance that is right on stars, is actually cellophane. That cellophane, or what you even call plastic, but an organic polymer, is exactly what's around stars. Okay? So somebody said, well, how do they know that knowledge? Somebody said, well, they never went to space. What are you talking about? Some may get into an argument about it. But as I said, as above, so below. They examine what stars really are. What stars really are, many of them are actually mirrors of trees. Okay? Especially the fixed stars. They're mirrors of trees. So when they studied trees and plants and leaves, they noticed that the leaves were mostly made of cellophane, this hyperactive polymer that reacted to UV light and actually was able to produce energy and even some kind of essence off of ultraviolet light, which is what plants do with the sun. And so it was summarized, which is also true, that the stars that you're seeing out there, the first bubble that's around them is cellophane. Okay, now I'm just bringing this to your attention because now then, with this material cellophane, it makes sense then that if that is our strip of film, and we put these stars in the negative, because remember, these are also called negatives. So we put these stars like John Wayne and Marilyn Monroe onto this strip of cellophane, and we then project with light this through a cathode ray tube, which is shaped like a hexagram, into the person's mind that's actually watching this using 1,000 points of light. That's an angelic reference, millions of points of light. Then in effect, we can actually send an entire world into their mind. Okay? So when I say the film, anytime in this conversation, you should understand that what I'm referring to is that it's an actual layer that starts to become created that separates you from what's really going on. Now, this was also taken from, because remember, this is not their invention. This was taken from that nature does this also. It's like her way of kind of soothing her children. She puts a film over their eyes to kind of shield them from darker things that happened at a certain time. So I'm going to explain this. When you die, if you haven't made the breakthrough yet and you haven't like knocked down the tunnel to yourself, there are all these doors, films, if you may, that are separating you from the past life. And every time you die, that door is closed. And there's like a film or a separation that's between you and the last life. And it's hard to either get through that film, see through that film. That's why you don't know much about your past life. It's hard to break through that film. Okay? So this is what I mean by when someone can be dragged through worlds, is that every time something stops and begins and there's a film in between it, this basically makes it like a separation for a person. Now, I'm going to make it even more clear, especially for those who like symbolism. If you notice when you look at a shell in the ocean, the ones that spiral and fly, there are these little parts in each, little separations in each part. It's like where the calcium builds up, forms a wall, and the wall becomes the structure that builds the next case. Okay? And that's why a shell generally has these separations in it, and you can't put your hand all the way through it because it actually has like little films that separate it. So when they call it a breakthrough, what they're referring to is somehow you gain the ability to knock down all of those doors, down the tunnel of phi, back to your original origins, to the original awareness of yourself, and you're able to connect your end to your beginning, your alpha to your omega. At that point, you become hypersentient. And until then, you exist with these films or layers blocking you from the past life and blocking you from the awareness of what happens after death and what happened to grandma, what happened to grandpa, what happened to great-great-grandma, what happened to your son, what happened to your dog. That place that they are is on the other side of the film. Okay? We call it outside of time. Okay? So what Hollywood has done is Hollywood has created a lot of film. Now, how you know this is phi is because now look at a film strip. Now, a film strip is exactly identical to the flat earth model. It is exactly how a projection really is. It's a disc. And the main thing to realize here is that if we took that one piece of film, which is like tape from a Hollywood strip, and then we just threw the reel, how long is that film? Super long. You ever even a tape deck? Have you ever unraveled all the tape? You're just unraveling all the tape. You ever done that? It's fun, right? But what is that tape actually made out of? How is that memory being stored on that tape? Through magnets, right? That somehow this film and these magnets is storing memory. Where are they getting this stuff from? You think they're inventing this stuff? They're thieves. They don't invent anything. They're not original. That's why they're dying, because they're not original. Only things that die are things that are not original. Anything that is original will exist forever. So they're in the world of death because they are refusing to accept certain levels of knowledge. They're aware of how it works, but they don't want to accept that. So what I'm getting at here is that real that you're looking at, look what they call it, real. This is what I'm saying about etymology. It could be simple etymology. It could be complex etymology. But now you got this real with these stars on it and this film in negative. And it's all phi because it's a spiral. And now the entire life or the entire movie is wound up on this reel. And it's just waiting to get played so that it can be projected into another being's consciousness. And when we realize again that these are the deepest levels of magic, you may just see this as like, well, that's just technology. No, this is how magic really works. And this is how worlds are projected into a person's mind. So then we go further and we find that there's a story that is continuously retold over and over again in the movies that you love. Now there's fill-ins, movies that you may not feel that was the greatest movie, but there's these movies that you really love. And they wrote a book one time and it was called, it's about the necessary characters that have to be in a story. So just as I told you before about sorcery and those kind of things, really storytelling, there's necessary characters that have to be there. And you've seen that in some of the lineups of Disney's, the grumpy one, the antagonist, the protagonist. So these characters, as long as that they're included in the story, it makes it a good movie. And where this knowledge is founded on is actually founded on astronomy or the stars, the house of cards, to where if you can get the major arcana all playing in a role together, then you can create theatrics. So this is where all of this really comes from, but it's taken directly from nature. It's taken directly from our mother. And it's not only just taken, it's then used to psychologically manipulate us, to suggest things that we may not understand completely how it connects to us. Like, for instance, in Sesame Street, there's a character that each child really feels that they're more like. So a child can walk away from Sesame Street from the first time feeling like they're more of an Oscar the Grouch. Okay. And then from there, if they have been able to dial in, this is William Wundt, this is John Trump, this is many of the people who developed the school systems that we're working in now, that child can walk away with feeling like that they're not only an Oscar the Grouch. Now in the next movie that is made that is working with this same template, there is now a new Oscar the Grouch. He's not going to be called Oscar the Grouch, but he's going to serve the exact same role as Oscar the Grouch did in Sesame Street. And now the kid is going to watch that new movie and he's going to identify with this character. Now, this is a process. That's what I'm saying. This is not happening just in one movie. Because it may be 10 or 15 years down the road when, just like Avengers Endgame, they just kill all the characters. You see what I mean? Because they will run that character through all these different cycles that they need this character to truly perform. So let's say, for instance, there's this character that is hyper intelligent, that is more like a nerd, gets bullied around, but actually ends up developing something that changes technology in the face of technology in every way that it should be. And then somehow he also ends up becoming a villain towards the end. So that same kid that felt like they gravitated towards that nerdiness and creating things, but children making fun of them until all the way to a point where they develop something. Now that may be George Bezos now, owner of Amazon. And what happens is how they always maintain control is Oscar the Grouch has a handler, if you may. There is a psychological subset around Oscar the Grouch. And as this character is continuously being manipulated, it's almost like an AI is watching all this now, but it's like pieces are being moved around the puzzle without even the characters knowing that they're actually in play, that this is all going on. So this means that a script will run out inside of each person, and they will act into the role of a character and never realize that they're playing themselves inside of a movie that is actually being suggested and suggested to them psychologically. And this goes on for 50 to 60 years as a person is manipulated within just archetypes that they gravitated to as a child. So again, there's a lot to expunge from that. There is a metaphysical awareness of exactly how things work and how programming can work even now in modern technology. There's awareness that many people that are actually inside of these structures, meaning stars and actors, are completely under control and are actually being handled and carrying out roles that they don't actually know the complete meanings to, not that they even care. And that this stuff is broadcasting night and day to a point where things are changing. One of my recent recordings was about Netflix's, you even have to watch what you say even on these lines, but I guess I'll just use it's the pedo words. See, we have to watch what words that we use now, especially on YouTube if we plan to stay. That's why I'm planning to leave, because once they pick up that word, then they're already like trying to use their algorithms to determine if they should be removing your channel. But there's a lot of abuse towards children, we'll just say that. And in this abuse towards children, this is perpetuated inside of the movies a lot now, especially Netflix. Netflix seems to be a storehouse for this abuse towards children now. And all the new movies seem to refer to actual sexual relationships with children as they're underage. Now, this is coming out, and it's so blatant that you wonder why these people don't just go to jail. I mean, this can't even be legal at this point. 20 years ago, everybody in there would be going to jail. But now it's okay. And it's because it's a slippery slope of psychology. Let me show you how this would work, because this is more psychological than it is metaphysical. If I say we got Spacey, we got Kevin Spacey, we got Bill Cosby, and we got Weinstein. Somehow, people think that, okay, all the abusers, all the sexual child predators and abusers in the world, we got them. We got Osama bin Laden too. And this is how these programs actually work. This, because remember, the person's only working with, like we talked about earlier, they're only working with a limited film strip of characters that are not even real. So they actually believe, a lot of the conscious consensus, the hive, if you may, believes that all the rapists are now captured or being punished, because they also got R. Kelly. They got R. Kelly too. And this is like 6 men. Half of them have already gotten away, but have nothing really to do with the overall. Well, they have something to do with, but they're not the big picture of the whole thing, is what I'm saying. But now, then, let me show you then what happens. And this is how it all works through suggestion and psychology. Now, since these guys are in jail, now Netflix is making these new movies where right away the children are being casted in these very ultra sexual roles, and the child is only like 12. But psychologically, in the person's mind who's already been brainwashed by the last program that they just sent out across the media, they say, well, you know what? I know nothing could be happening with those children. They even say this subconsciously. They never think about this in their conscious mind anymore. They say subconsciously to themselves, because the subconscious mind picks it all up. Like, wait a minute, are they talking about having sex with children? The subconscious mind immediately says, no. Because obviously right now, if somebody was doing that even in Hollywood, somebody would be watching or policing that, because everybody out there is under fire right now. And if there was any kind of sexual abuse going on, it definitely wouldn't be happening now, because nobody wants to lose their job in Hollywood. What? But this is how the thought process is being morphed. So what I'm asking is, what are we in for next? With it now being okay, like rap music, it's just ridiculous. Like, this is disgraceful to the culture. I don't care what anybody is saying. It's like, for us to share the same skin color and for you to be talking and saying these kind of things, especially about other people that are involved in our same racial group, where we need to oust you. But somehow this is the most popular thing, right? But it still perpetuates this idea and these stereotypes of what it's like to be in this skin color, which is most of the time false. And then again, and everybody gets it. Like I say, everybody's got something. Like, even if we throw in Germany, the Nazis, that has nothing to do. The German people are still dealing with the poverty situation from that shady ass treaty that was signed when Hitler was acting like Osama bin Laden back in his day, just trying to deal with maintaining things before the bunker busters come and take up everything because they can't put their damn bank in. And it's as simple as that. But this force that continuously erects more and more protection around itself. Oh, you must protect our community. You must protect our symbols. You must protect. And this is what is leading further and further into, when this closes, it'll be like a film. They'll cast it just like a movie role. It'll have a grand crescendo, maybe a World War III. And then, it'll all fall out and it'll feel like it was everybody's fault. And then we'll loop again. And I believe at this point that this has happened so many times, not only am I getting sick of it, it's making me wake up a lot earlier than even I should. It's like, yo, wake up, man, wake up. Because it's going to loop again. It's going to loop again. You can feel it, because what change did we actually make? Where are we really, what actions are we actually making to change this? And is there something that we can actually do? We thought that our voice was going to be enough, that just getting onto these microphones and actually making people aware of consciousness was enough. I've been doing this 10 years. To only find out that I actually have 10 years, 100,000 subscribers. So this means I was like the slowest growing YouTube channel then. This means I accumulated only 10,000 subscribers per year on this channel, right? So what happens here is that we can now get into the solutions. I'm going to get you right into the solutions so we can assess the power here, because we need power. You're powerless now. You're not sovereign anymore. You're not a sovereign operating on the land anymore. Your nobility was stolen.